Hi, I am Cesar Santos. Today I'm going to show you how to see brushes in a new way for painters. Brushes are really important. No, but seriously, after this video is over, you'll be able to recognize and go to your pile of brushes and get the best brush for whatever you're painting. Plus, I have a special guest coming to give me some insights about brushes. What is a brush? Well, for oil painters, a brush is an extension of their perception, an extension of their vision, an extension of our mind, and literally of our hand. That's where we put our thoughts into action. For oil painters, size matters. These exaggerated long brushes are great because you can just stand away from your subject and really have that gesture going from far. So you can actually see what's going on the other side of the brush. These are more normal sizes for oil painters. When you see shorter brushes, they're mainly for watercolor artists, where they have to paint in a horizontal position and be closer to the paper, to the surface. That way, you don't have a long extending thing uncomfortable in your face. Our special guest is Symi Jackson. She's the sales and marketing director for Rosemary brushes. They have been making handmade brushes for over 35 years. I just turned 35, so you can put that into perspective. I used to paint with whatever brushes I could find. Synthetic, some maybe naturals that were on sale. I wasn't really particular. But after I tried the Rosemary brushes, I really loved it. So what better than to bring the person that actually creates those brushes to share some of her insights and have an interesting conversation about these brushes. Hello!
The thing is, it's hard to really explain shapes and hair at the same time. You've really got to think about your fibres and your hair first, and then the shapes of the brushes, so it's really key.
Let's divide the brushes into two categories: the synthetic ones and the natural ones. Within those two types, there are so many different variations in shapes and form that can be used in different ways. I did the whole program at the Angel Academy using only synthetic brushes. They were cheaper. As long as you get good quality of those synthetic brushes and you know when to use them, they can work perfectly fine.
Synthetic starts off white, and when you dye it, it changes the temperament. You've got your ivories that would just be your generic white. Something like this is quite popular for really getting on as much paint as you can. Go into your synthetics even more. The green ones, we dyed them, they look a little bit black under this light. The thing you've got to think with synthetics over anything else, they're inexpensive, but they're usually easier to clean.
Synthetic brushes come in different colors. They start white, but they can have many other shades, and you can actually feel them to see if they're soft or harder, to be able to use it in different stages of your painting. If you have access to synthetic brushes and natural brushes, always try to use the synthetic ones for the beginning of the painting. That's when you are more abusive and more broad and rough, and these synthetics can be the best for that use. Natural hair are the best option because they grab the paint in a better way. The reason is that the hairs have splits at the end, and these tend to grab more quantity of paint and drag the paint better on the canvas. When I use the natural hairs, I rather use the white hair. This is a hog hair for the rougher stages, the rougher areas of the paint where you're gonna be adding more pressure to the brush. And I use the sable hair, the sable brush, to the final layers. When I'm doing my second painting, that's when all the paint is wet, and I'm actually gonna be more delicate when applying the paint with this brush. So this is a more expensive brush than this, and you use it for the more refined areas of the painting.
To describe something like sable, I always describe it like a Rolls Royce. It really is. If you can afford sable, go for it. But my God, the marks you can get with sables.
Whether you use synthetic brushes or natural brushes, always make sure that the brush is a good quality. You can have natural brushes that are great quality and also bad quality, as well as synthetics that are poor quality and also great quality with synthetics. Actually, some synthetic brushes can be better than some natural brushes. That's why I trust Rosemary brushes, because I know they're gonna perform the way I want the brush to perform. A little tip for you: when you go to select a brush at the store, just make sure you grab the brush and do some pressure on it, as if you were painting, and make sure that the bend is towards the middle of the brush, not towards the tip of the brush, not towards the ferrule of the brush, but mainly that the bend is towards the middle. That means that the brush is nice and balanced. Now, regardless of the type of brush you use, there are many shapes available to us that we can use for a specific area in the painting. Each shape will direct its natural form and will help you or influence the way the paint is applied on the canvas. The round brush is the most traditional type of brush. It's where you see the self-portraits of the masters holding a bunch of round brushes with their palettes.
The traditional style was the round, but also was what we call an egbert, which is basically a filbert but that's even longer.
And that brush is great for sketching, outlining, drawing, and the round brush also gives you softer and more curvy lines and areas. For instance, when we look at this area here, I'm representing hair, and when I think of hair, I think of movement, I think of variation of color, soft, and I'm gonna use the round brush, and I'm not painting here because this is finished. But if you see like places like this, I use the round brush because I can go thinner, kind of curving it around, going in circles, and then press. And that's what you see around these areas here. You can also fill smaller areas with this brush because you can actually start with the point and then change it around and make it as broad as the brush is. So all the strokes here, we can see that it's made with the round brush. And that's how you get the softness and the thinner kind of variation within that area. The flat brush allows you to use bolder brush strokes. Since it has such a defined edge, it's great for edges and straight lines. The easel is made out of wood, it's strong, it's straight, and it has a lot of angular changes. So I select the flat brush for doing this stuff because I can go and paint the edges of the thing with the flat edge like that. With a flat brush will create a straight line. So all these areas were easier for me to paint them with the flat. Depending on the size of the brush, it can be used for wider areas and also to apply impastos on the paint. It's a very strong brush, and it's the brush that we all use for varnishing the painting. The bright type is of great use for application of thicker, heavier color. It's a shorter hair and a little bit rounder on the sides. And that is a great brush for bolder, rougher application. The rigger, as you see, is a very thin pointed round brush that will be great for doing details. So around the lips here, you can see all these lines were made with this small brush to do details. In the eyes, maybe some edge, some line work. So it will be great for smaller details if you need to go into smaller areas. The Filbert type is a dome shape and it's great for blending and also for softer, rounder edges. If you turn it on the side, it's so thin that you can imitate a round brush, and also when used just flat against the canvas, it can reproduce the look of the flat brush.
Well, the thing with filberts is, filberts, you know, the oval kind of shape, a dome shape, but you can get more pointed shapes like that. But filberts, when you start to wear them down, will become flats, and flats will become filberts. So the filbert is more versatile. You can manage and have the look of different type of brush application with only using one brush. Remember that this painting is finished, so I don't want to paint on it, but the idea is that the filbert is great for blending. The filbert is good because it has these round edges, and when you go to a corner like that, you can just go in there and move it around and blend things with each other. So all this area was done with the filbert. There are many other types of brushes, but the last one I use and I love, and it's less popular of a brush, is the fan brush. Well, the fan brush I don't use to paint grass or to do little
leaves on the trees or anything like that. But mainly, the fan brush is a brush that I use for softening the brush strokes that I don't want to be catching light and reflecting that glare. For example, on the black area here, you can actually blend this a little bit more. And what I use is that in an area that I'm using a lighter color, I can use half of the fan brush, and in a darker area, the other half, so they don't mix. But the idea is that with the fan brush, you can really make all these colors blend and make them really, really soft. And do a more improved mirror. I use it towards the final layers when the paint is wetting to wet. I get the dry fan brush and kind of brush it over to get rid of all the three-dimensionality of the paint that I just applied there. That way it becomes smooth and the glare doesn't reflect as much on top of the paint application.
Remember that they're there to be an extension of your arm. The whole thing is, this whole painting thing's already hard enough. You make it look easy. Most people can't, make it look as easy as you. So you really need to make sure that your tools are working with you, not against you.
After we learn about all the types of brushes that we have available to us and what each type does and the reaction on the canvas is, I would suggest approaching the idea of how to use a brush a little bit to the contrary of what the common belief is in terms of how to use the brush and when. Instead of looking at the brush type for its effect, I would suggest to look at the thing that you are about to paint and feel what tool is required for you to transfer that feeling, that energy into the canvas. I wouldn't go out there and ask which type of brush does what, because then that will become a generic answer. All type of brush can do all types of effect. It's more important for you to paint and experience with all the type of brushes you have there until you feel what each brush does. When you come to paint a subject, always feel the demand from that area. What is that area requiring? And you will be the one responsible for selecting the type of brush that will do that specifically. You want variation in the application, in the amount of paint you put on the canvas, and that is what makes it interesting too. The most important thing is for you to be connected to the subject you're painting, so you're the one responsible for selecting whatever brush in whatever scenario. The point is that you have to use many type of brushes and paint a lot so you can get used to what each brush is capable of doing. So the next time you need to paint an area, you will naturally go straight to the tool, to the brush that you need to solve that specific problem. Thank you so much, Rosemary, for making such a high quality brushes. Also, Symi, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your knowledge and the process of the brushes I use. And by the way I first saw your name and the way I describe it will be Rosemary Roses. Let's wrap this video up. Brushes come in shapes, the round, the filbert, the flat. Lucky for Symi that left before I started this wrap. For a more complete demonstration, there are my instructional videos out there that actually shows me painting and how I think about it. These videos are meant more to have a discussion about the theory of art and for me to teach you quicker elements involved in the arts.